Today we're talking about drainage layers and why I'm pretty sure you don't need one. Hello creature lovers and welcome to the universe. Today, as mentioned, we're talking about drainage layers, and this is a multi-use video because I mostly see the talk about drainage layers in isopod groups on social media, but it really goes for every invertebrate. It goes for 99.9% of all invertebrate bins and for a big part of glass enclosures. So if you're considering getting a drainage layer, you should watch this video. And let's start with what is a drainage layer. And as always, it's much easier to show than to tell. A drainage layer is basically nothing else than some solids like lava rock in this case, we even it out, and some sort of fabric, which is basically the barrier between the substrate and the drainage layer. You even out the drainage layer, and this is a complete drainage layer. And as you can see on the front of the box, it's about 2 centimeters or nearly an inch in depth. What is it made for? It is only made for absorbing excess moisture, or in this case, water, and for nothing else in reality. And to show you how it works, we have this little cup here that is exactly 250 milliliter of water or of liquid. And we have a squish bottle and we have a spray bottle. And the big question, if you need a drainage layer or not, is how could excess moisture get in there? And in reality, if you're keeping isopods or millipedes or something, you're hand spraying. And so the only way there can be too much water in the bin is you. And as always, let's do a little demonstration. We have this 250 milliliter cup. Now we have made 50 milliliters of water. And then my favorite tool to watering bins, the squish bottle. This goes a bit faster, but now we should be at 100 milliliter, correct. To speed that process up a little bit, we pour it in directly into the cup. And now we have 250 milliliter of water in here. And this is the amount of water you need to pour into your bins to equal that. And now we pour it over the bin. The water goes through the fabric, and we are using a drainage layer. As you can see, the water is slowly pouring through and nothing more happens. And now let me show you something else. We have 250 milliliters of water again. Actually a bit more, it's really full. And we have our standard 14 liter isopod bin with our standard base layer, which is 50% of compost and 50% of organic topsoil. And I also mixed in for every 2 liters of compost and Topsoil, about a quarter liter of plant or charcoal. And this is how I would set up a standard isopod bin. And now we're taking this 250 milliliters of water. Yes, I know that would happen. And pour it over the bin. And as you can see, nothing happens. The substrate absorbs the water. The same amount of water we poured into the drainage layer. So a drainage layer in this kind of bin is absolutely useless. You're just wasting space for good substrate. The excess moisture is absorbed by the base layer and you don't need this drainage layer. So I decided to spice it up a little bit. We take another 250 milliliter of water and we once again pour it over our base layer of substrate. And as you can see, it easily absorbs the double amount of what we used in the first time. So we're now talking about a half squish bottle of water you need to pour into the bin and nothing happens. Nobody does that. And if you do it, when there is moss, I'm pretty sure it is no problem, but let's test that out as well. Once again, we have about 250 milliliters of water, and this is a liter box, so it's about a liter of moss. We pour in the whole liquid, and now it's time to wait a bit. And as long we're waiting to absorb the excess moisture for the moss, we're talking about the pros and cons of a drainage layer. So what's the pros? The pros are it can absorb a lot of moisture. That's it. What's the cons? It wastes space for good, nutrient-rich or useful substrate for your animal. It can grow bad bacteria when there is constantly liquid on the bottom of the bin. And often I see mentioned that it's a good moisture regulation. That isn't true. That only works if the temperatures are in a proper level. If it's too cool, there is no more evaporation or much lesser evaporation, and the moisture control fails. So after spinning the moss a little bit around, it absorbed all the excess moisture. Okay, there is a little bit here in the corner, but in reality it absorbed nearly everything. And if I make an isopod box ready, I use at least double the amount of moss, so we can pour 1 liter of liquid into this standard isopod bin without having any standing water anywhere in the bin. So does a drainage layer make sense? It doesn't in these cases. But when does a drainage layer make sense? For me, there are only 2 cases where it's a good choice or at least a possible choice. Number 1 is if you have a glass enclosure and you have big plants in it, big tropical plants that need a lot of water, then it can be good to have a drainage layer. But first, the water in the drainage layer normally is not made to water the plant because you have a fabric in between and the roots have to grow through the fabric to get access to that water. And if they grow through the fabric, the whole being of the fabric makes no more sense because there is no more splitting between the substrate and the drainage layer. So for big plants, I would consider using smaller plants or a deeper substrate. Same effect, less problems. And the second thing is, and here is the case where I also use drainage layers. If you're working with an automatic misting system with a reservoir. Why make it sense? Because of a technical malfunction, a failure. When your misting system, something breaks and it gets an under pressure and pumps the whole reservoir into your enclosure. Then and only then, in my opinion, it makes sense to have a drainage layer. But if you're just operating one enclosure with the misting system, you need to make sure the drainage layer can absorb as much water as the reservoir holds. Because if it does not, it also overflows. Because too much water for too less drainage layer. So my final opinion on drainage layers in isopod bins or in other invertebrate bins like roaches, millipedes or whatever, skip it. It doesn't do you a favor at all. It wastes important space, especially in boxes or bins that are not that high. If you have a 30 centimeter box and you want a drainage layer, okay, go for it. It doesn't make a change anyways. But if you have limited space and you need that space, don't waste it with the drainage layer. I use the drainage layer in my dart frog enclosures where I had an automatic misting system. And that's it. That's the reason why I had to use lava rocks instead of clay pebbles. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I hope we could help you make a decision on the drainage layer for your own. Nothing more to say for me except for thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more of this style of content, and have a great week. See you in the universe. Bye bye.